Hey y'all, it's week 26 on Wegovy, and we've been on this journey together for 6 months. I thought it was high time that we did a best of recipes video, so today I'll be showing some of my absolute favorite recipes from the last 6 months. I hope you find some new ones you may have missed, or you get reminded of the ones that you already fell in love with. My top 2 breakfasts that I'm going to share with you are air fryer Korean egg toasts and the spinach ricotta quiche. For lunches, we're going to be looking back at the creamy baked chicken taquitos. I've been eating those lately and man are they good. And then also the shrimp ceviche tostadas. For our top 2 dinners, we're going to be looking at the cheesy chicken corn chowder and some Salisbury steak meatballs. Some of these are from as far back as week 4, so for those of you that are new, these should be brand new to you. For those of you who've been around a while, I hope you enjoy the trip down memory lane. The recipes are all going to be linked down in the description. If you'd like a detailed calorie and macro breakdown of everything that I've been eating this week, I'll leave a link in the description to my FitnessPal profile where you can see my food diary. If these recipes sound good to you, be sure to give the video a like. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get cooking. Good morning. It's time to make some breakfast. Today we are doing some Korean egg toasts in the air fryer, and we need bacon. Sorry, it's early. Some butter, 2 eggs, some cups to cook them in the air fryer in, or if you have like those egg bite molds or whatever, but I don't. And then some cheese, whatever kind you like, and some bread. Let's get cooking. All right, let's put these together. Thought I had everything together. I was wrong. So the first thing we're gonna do is I've got a half a tablespoon of butter here, which is probably too much, but it's what I allotted calorie wise. So just gonna brush the inside of these cups just to make it easy to get everything out. It's probably unnecessary because you're gonna have the bacon, but it's what the recipe told me to do, and I try to follow recipes the first time. Alright, that took next to no butter at all. Looks good and covered. Yeah, I didn't use hardly anything. I'm probably going to be able to use that for the rest of the week. Okay, and then I took 1 slice of bacon and I sliced it in half because these cups are really small. But we're just going to take this piece of bacon and stretch it out a little because half was a little skinny. I just didn't want them to overlap because I don't like soggy bacon. Soggy bacon is nasty. So you can see I've got some missing bacon space there. I'm gonna just do some patchwork here. It won't be as pretty, but it'll work. I'm gonna try doing a whole slice and see what happens. I think that's gonna be way too big.
Starling, eggnog, gin and tonic make Yuletide gay and jolly. Same procedure.
Now he cut the crusts off his bread. I don't really care. I think it was mostly for aesthetic purposes. But we're just gonna do this. Now authentic versions use like a batter that they pour in. But this was his shortcut, so I'm gonna use it. And then we're just gonna cut this. We're gonna put 1 slice, and not all the way to the bottom, but we're just gonna put like 4 slices. And then we're gonna push it down into the cup. And those slices will make it so that the bread can overlap and fit down in there. Yeah, these cups are definitely smaller. Well, so see, it looks like a little flower in there. That's cute. All right, and then we're gonna take an egg and we're just gonna plop it in there. And I'm gonna put just a little bit of salt and then half of my cheese, which should melt really nicely down in there. And then I'm gonna do the other one. All right, we're gonna bake these at 350. In his recipe, he baked it long enough to cook it all the way through like a hard-boiled egg. I don't want that. I want my egg to still be runny. So he did 370 for like 16 minutes or something like that. I'm going to try 350 starting at like 10 to 12 minutes, and then I'm going to check it, and then we'll go from there. Ooh, definitely golden brown. Check and see if these are done in the middle. All right, so I peeled back the cheese and the white looks done. The yolk is still a little creamy, which is what I wanted. And that was 12 minutes at 350. So let's disrobe these guys from the cups. Cup just kind of came apart. Yeah, I was kind of afraid of that. The bacon's not really very crisp, but I'll bet they're gonna be delicious anyway. If you're a fan of soggy bacon, this is perfect for you, but if you want a runny egg yolk, you gotta pick between the two, I guess. All right, let's try these out. All right, let's cut into one of these guys. And tomorrow I'll probably put the cheese underneath the egg. Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, the egg for me could have baked even a little bit less, so maybe I'll try pre-cooking the bacon and the toast part. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to figure out something though, because I wouldn't want to cook that egg any longer, but the bacon is definitely undercooked for me. All right, we're gonna try out this egg toast. Yeah, that's real good. It's real good. I need to iron out the kinks, but I mean, honestly, even with the bacon not super crispy, it's still real good. You should try this. It's super easy. All right, we're going to start on this quiche. We're going to need eggs, obviously. I'm using cashew milk in place of skim milk, some Parmesan cheese, spinach, a prepared deep dish 9-inch pie dough, and then some recipe calls for part skim mozzarella. My grocery store was out, so I got low fat. Some grape tomatoes, part skim mozzarella, and some kosher salt. Let's do this.
It's electric when you kiss me. Never felt this way before. We're magnetic, wanna stay here closer than close. Up in the clouds, I can see the whole world now. Breathtaking world, can't believe my eyes. Up in the sky, I can see the whole world tonight. 'Cause you make me feel like I wanna get lost in your paradise. You make me believe it's real. Just high up above from ground, but closer to heaven. I won't fight it, can't deny it. I'm under your
let's try this quiche. Basically, so I prepped this on Monday so that it would be ready to go, and I just cut it into 6 slices. And then I preheated my air fryer and I stuck it in at 300 degrees for about 7 minutes. That's really all it takes. And the crust is crispy on the bottom from the air fryer. And the cheese is all stringy from those little ricotta pockets in the mozzarella. You get that little bit of brightness from the tomato. And since they're cut in half, like the jelly on the inside kind of caramelizes a little bit. So it gets like sweet and jammy. This is like hands down one of my absolute favorite breakfast foods. I'm much more of a savory breakfast person than a sweet breakfast person. I like sweet breakfast for dinner or like another time. Like I used to when I lived with my sisters, they used to make waffles all the time. And so like I would have a waffle for like a mid-afternoon snack or like a late night snack or dessert or something like that. So I prefer sweet breakfast for times other than breakfast. I really like more savory stuff like this, and the flavor in this is phenomenal. The recipe calls to use basil, but I usually don't put basil in it just because it's so expensive. I plan on eventually starting an herb garden, but I don't really have much of a green thumb and I have a tendency to kill everything. So I've tried growing basil before and it did work for a while, but then eventually I got to the place where I forgot about it and stopped taking care of it. And then of course it died. So anyway, definitely make this. Totally worth it. It's fantastic for meal prep because you just make it once and then it makes 6 to 8 servings depending on how large of a piece you want. But I mean, this piece, the piece of quiche and the strawberries, and the strawberries together is only 335 calories. So it's, even if you do 6 slices instead of 8, it's still very low calorie. So I hope you give this one a shot. It's really delicious. Okay, we're gonna get started on these frozen baked chicken taquitos. We're gonna need cilantro, lime, green onion. That's the chicken I cooked in the Instant Pot. Some cream cheese, 20 smallish, like soft taco fajita size flour tortillas. You can use corn if you want. Flour is just a lot easier to maneuver and they taste delicious. We're gonna use some salsa verde, some Colby Jack cheese, garlic powder, onion powder, cumin, kosher salt, and chili powder. Let's do this. The recipe only calls for 2 tablespoons, but I like green onion. Same, it says 3 tablespoons chopped cilantro. There's gonna be more. 1 tablespoon of fresh lime juice. This lime is pretty juicy. That'll probably do it all on its own, but I am gonna pop it in the microwave for about 15 seconds. We need 3 ounces of cream cheese. 2 7/8. 3 on the nose. And then I'm gonna pop this in the microwave for about like 20 seconds just to make it really soft and easy to blend. Recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of green salsa. I just add this whole thing, which is closer to a cup. Because what am I going to do with the rest of it? A teaspoon of chili powder. Half a teaspoon of onion powder. It says a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, but I'm going to do a half. It's my kitchen, I do what I want. A half teaspoon of cumin. You guys also know my love for coriander. I'm going to throw some of that in here. About half a teaspoon as well. It says kosher salt, but it doesn't say how much. I'm just going to put in a 1/4 teaspoon for now because there's a lot of salt in there between the cream cheese and the thing, and I seasoned my chicken already, so I think that'll be plenty. You could do this super fast with a hand mixer. This is one of those recipes that works really well for meal prep, and it makes a ton. Like, you end up having 20 taquitos at the end of this, which, I mean, I'm the only one that eats them in my house. So the last time I made them, they lasted me for months. They're so quick to throw together. If you do this step with a hand mixer, it takes like 30 seconds. Threw this in the freezer for about 5 minutes while I just threw everything else together. We only need a half a block of cheese, which is about a cup. But I just figure, for my calories, I figure 4 ounces. These, if you use the same proportions of everything that I do, these come out to 130 calories per taquito, which is insane. Like, if you're not a big topping person, like when I eat these, I basically turn them into a giant salad. They have a lot more calories when I eat them because I put like sour cream and guacamole, and I put queso fresco on top, and a bunch of shredded cabbage and pico de gallo and all that, which is delicious. But obviously you don't have to be that extra. I'm gonna take my tortillas, and for reference, this is my hand, so that's the size. And you can use a scoop if you want. You do not want to overstuff these, they will never stay together. And then we're gonna take them and we're gonna kind of stretch them out into a little line in the middle. And then we're just going to take a freezer tray like this and I'm going to put some parchment on it. Parchment's not necessary, it's just for easy cleanup. And we're just going to take this and we're going to roll them up and then seam side down on the tray. A while since I made these, it's a little easier if you put the filling kind of to one side. And then once these are all rolled up, we'll stick this tray in the freezer, get them all frozen, and then just stick them in a freezer bag. And then when I want to eat them, I'll just pull 2 out and put them in my air fryer. So there we have them. Stick them in the freezer. So I just grabbed 2 of my taquitos and I put them in my air fryer. I'm using a little bit of parchment paper just for the sake of easy cleanup because I hate cleaning my air fryer. But I mean, they always get plenty crispy for me, even with the parchment paper, but you can always take it off. The recipe tells you to spray a little non-stick spray on top. I don't usually bother, and they get plenty crispy for me. So I will do it this time just for the sake of following directions. There we go. And I'm gonna put them in. Use my frozen setting, which is 350 for 10 minutes, and it'll have me shake them halfway through, which I'll just flip them over. Someone is anxiously awaiting the arrival of these taquitos. They are good and crispy. It's taquito time. Really good flavor. I mean, you could eat these with whatever you want. You could just eat them plain. Dip them in some guac. Make some homemade queso. I whipped up like a Greek yogurt, lime, whatever concoction. I just kept throwing stuff in a cup until it tasted good. So I don't even know that I could give you a recipe. But I always eat it with some shredded cabbage and avocado and queso fresco. That's that little salad that you saw on the side. And I just kind of cut it up and throw it all together and eat it like a big salad. It's really, really good. These are so convenient to have in the freezer. You can just literally just take 2 out of the freezer, throw them in the air fryer, shove them in your face when you don't feel like cooking. They're really good. You should make them. All right, I'm gonna get started on these shrimp tostadas. So I take some liberties, surprise, surprise, with this recipe, and I'll kind of walk you through them, but we're going to need some kosher salt, some avocado, red onion, limes, tomato. I add cucumber and cabbage to mine. You also need cilantro. I picked up these baked tostadas. They're really good. And then you need a pound of shrimp. The recipe calls for cooked shrimp. Obviously, I'm going to cook mine. I bought them raw, and I will season them and cook them the way that I like them. So let's get started. So again, the recipe just calls for cooked shrimp, but I'm gonna make my own because flavor. I'm just preheating the pan with a little bit of olive oil spray in it, and we'll throw in the shrimp. And I pre-cut them up just to make it easier on myself later. And I'm gonna do a little salt. And a little pep. And some garlic. Basically like just taco seasoning blend. So some coriander. A little. And you could toss the shrimp with these seasonings before you throw it in. Garlic powder. Onion powder. Probably like a half a teaspoon of each of these. And some cumin. Cumin's probably more like a 1/4 of a teaspoon. Now just kind of tossing around in the seasonings. They really shouldn't take very long to cook. Those are tiny pieces of shrimp. Maybe a minute or two. Oops. I think that's done. I don't want them to overcook, they'll get real rubbery. And again, those are tiny pieces of shrimp. So let's go put the salad together. Alright, so in here I have my shrimp. We're also going to throw in, recipe calls for a tablespoon of cilantro, which I think is hilarious. Probably better if you let that shrimp cool off, but I'm hungry. Recipe calls for 1 medium tomato chopped, but I want more. I want more. Dick Tracy, anybody? No? Okay. Got my diamonds, got my yacht, got a man I adore. Yeah, that looks good. And then the recipe calls for about a 1/4 cup of red onion. Probably have a little bit more because have we met? A 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. As always, if you're using regular salt, you will need less because you can fit less of them in a measuring instrument. Also need the juice from 2 limes. Ooh, juicy sucker. Okay, so there's our lime juice. Now, the recipe calls to add the avocado into this, and it may be okay because of all the lime juice, but the way I like to eat it is I mix up this part. The recipe also calls for a jalapeno, but I'm just not feeling the spicy this week, so so once you get it to this point, this is how I store it in my fridge. And then when it comes time to assemble the tostada, then I mix the avocado into whatever I'm eating for that. So this is only 4 servings. It's a lot. So I also add cabbage and cucumber onto my my tostada, but I'll show you that when I put it together. So I'm going to put a lid on this and let it sit in the fridge for a little while, and then we'll make lunch. All right, so let's put this together. In here I have 1 baby mini cucumber, and I'm just dicing up half of a very small avocado. I'm gonna throw it in with the cucumber. Then I'm gonna take a 1/4 of my shrimp mixture-ish. Sure. And a little bit of the lime juice. I'm just gonna toss that together. Man, does that look good or what? Yum. 1 of my baked tostadas. Right, and then I'm gonna put all of that. It's a bit much for that little bitty tostada. You could do 2 if you wanted to, but. And then right on top, I'm gonna put some shredded cabbage. And boy, if that ain't pretty. Yum. Try this shrimp salad. It's so fresh and crunchy. This would also be really good with some queso fresco crumbled on top or cotija. I'm probably going to put a couple shakes of hot sauce. I know I left the jalapeno out, but I feel like it could do with a little bit of heat. But you should definitely try this. It's not a pick up and eat tostada. Like you saw how giant it was. It's way too big for that. But you can also eat this with some fruit. I like eating it with watermelon sometimes. I have made this recipe before, but it was a long time ago and I completely forgot about it. And I am super excited that I remembered it because it's real good. Make this one, guys. I just finished eating and I was getting ready to clean up and I realized that I completely forgot to add the avocado oil to that shrimp salad, and honestly, I don't think it needed it. I mean, the whole recipe only called for a teaspoon anyway, so I mean, I guess it would add some richness, but there's plenty of richness from the avocado, so it's up to you. I forgot. I apologize in advance for the noise in the background. They're doing renovations on the apartment next to mine. So we're getting ready to start this cheddar corn chowder with bacon. We have some fat-free half and half. Recipe calls for milk, but this is what I had and I need to use it, so we're using it. I also add chicken to mine. The recipe does not call for it, but we like meat. Some flour, some corn, extra sharp white cheddar, a couple potatoes, 2 onions, some garlic. Recipe calls for 2 cloves of garlic, but these were really, really small, so we're doing more. Some cauliflower. I know what you're saying. Corn chowder. Why is there cauliflower? It is a thickener for the soup, and it is amazing. You cannot taste it. My husband refuses to eat vegetables, loves this soup, has no idea it's in there. Incidentally, oh my gosh. Incidentally, this may be the last time he eats it, because if he watches this video, he's gonna know. Chicken broth, salt, pepper, thyme, turmeric, and some center cut bacon. Let's get it.
I bet you're cold. You're so damn cold. It never rains in California. The sun is always shining bright. But if the sky would open up, you're staying home, you don't get out. You always used to love the rain, but LA changed you. No rain, no flowers, nothing's growing where your heart is fire. But baby, I bet you're cold without me, even when it's 90 degrees. Without me, I bet that you can get in.
So I deviate a little bit in terms of how I prepare this. The recipe tells you to, do the onions and the garlic in there, and to add the broth and the potatoes and the cauliflower all together. Now, I like to add the cauliflower and the chicken and let that cook completely first. I take that out so that I'm able to blend everything and make it really smooth, and I don't have any pieces of cauliflower that don't get blended, because I don't want the potato to be blended. I want the potato to stay in chunks. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish putting this together. I do also add a little bit of corn to the mix while it's cooking, so that can get blended in. It tells you to just add it into the blender and not bother cooking it, but I feel like you get more corn flavor if you let it cook in with the soup for a little bit. So I'm just gonna keep on trucking along. You're welcome to follow my way, you're welcome to follow her way. Either way, it's gonna be delicious. Show you what's going on in here. We're just letting this bacon get crispy, and then we're gonna take it out before we throw in the onions and the garlic. She has you using it for garnish. I still throw it back in, but I just don't want blended bacon.
I've been here before, familiar with the view. This ain't nothing new. And every time that you walk through the door, I'm hit by the same old side, blinded by the lights, and I'm going through changes.
And that will start releasing liquid, so it'll help to deglaze the bottom of that pan, which will be delicious. Now again, the recipe only calls for 12 ounces of cauliflower. I put a whole head up in this mug. this looks like here. Got a very dark fond on the bottom of this pan, but I'm hoping I'm going to be able to just deglaze that and it'll be okay. I don't think it's burnt. The bottom of this pan was really dark, but it was not burnt. So you just want to add the broth a little bit at a time and scrape it with a wooden spoon really good and just get it all up into the broth, and it's amazing flavor. We're going to do high pressure. Recipe calls for 10 minutes, but because I'm doing chicken in there, I'm going to do 20 minutes. When it's done, I'm going to go ahead and quick release, and then I will bring you back while I blend it. All right, let's cut these taters. So basically, I'm just looking for like a cutesy little dice, just for it to be a nice little bite. Probably cut this plank too wide, but those little pieces like that. That's all I want. You can do big, you can do smaller, you can do whatever the heck you want because you are the master of your universe.
I know you haven't noticed. You know that I
All right, y'all. So I released the Kraken.
know how it feels when time goes slow. And I won't let it rush when I see you dance. And the moment comes when I fall and time goes slow. I fall in.
I need you to see how deep the color of this broth is. Isn't that beautiful?
I fall into you. I wish I could show you more, 'cause baby you deserve some more. But still you're here and that's what I adore. Should've told you straight away.
I'm gonna put the lid back on this, and I'm gonna let it go for another 10 minutes.
Noticed. You know.
Show you how smooth it is, and it has none of that. You know how cauliflower can have that kind of farty flavor or smell? None of that. So I'm gonna let this finish cooking those potatoes for the last 5 minutes, and then I will meet you back.
And the moment comes when I fall and time goes slow. I fall into you. I fall into you. I fall into you.
You know those people that has to like get every last drop, even though you know it's not gonna make that much of a difference? OCD. It's a struggle. The struggle is real. Is I'm gonna pour my 8 ounces of half and half in here, and I'm gonna blend this to try and clear some of that, get some more of that puree off of the sides of the blender cup. And you can see that hardly did anything. Awesome. Yay.
I wanna get closer.
Leave it alone, Mindy. Okay, I'm leaving it.
Yeah, we could go back to my place, 'cause I don't wanna waste no precious time. So let's go back to my place. If it's only for tonight, let's make it count. I love it, how your touch feels. I love it, how you look at me in my place. No, I don't wanna waste no precious time.
Perfect. All right, so all I'm gonna do is shred up this chicken, throw it in there, and then this is just gonna sit on warm until my husband gets home and we gonna eat. Make this recipe, y'all. It's amazing. All right, so we're gonna start on these Salisbury steak meatballs. For that, we're gonna need dry mustard, ground beef, ground turkey. It's upside down. Ground turkey. Oh my gosh, my whole world is falling apart. Whatever. Okay. Ground beef, ground turkey, Worcestershire, red wine vinegar, some flour as a thickener for the sauce. We're going to use dried minced onion instead of fresh just because I want to make my life easier. The recipe calls for whole wheat breadcrumbs. I just have these Italian style. Some avocado oil. Recipe calls for reduced sodium beef broth. I have beef bouillon. Some mushrooms, salt and pepper, and some tomato paste. I'm going to be doubling the recipe because the recipe called for ½ pound each of ground turkey and ground beef, and all of the containers that I have for ground beef and ground turkey are 1 pound each, and I don't feel like figuring out what to do with ½ pound each of ground turkey and ground beef. Plus, my husband likes meat. Let's do this. All right, let's throw together these meatballs. So in here I have my ground beef and my ground turkey. Again, I'm doubling the recipe. I'm going to throw in 2/3 of a cup of breadcrumbs. Also going to throw in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I'm going to eyeball this because I don't feel like digging it out of a measuring device. That's 1, 2-ish. I have 1½ teaspoons of kosher salt and some black pepper. Recipe calls to saute onions in oil. I'm not bothering with all of that. I'm just going to do some minced onion. And then we have 2 ounces of those mushrooms minced up really fine. My husband likes the flavor of mushrooms, but he doesn't like the texture. But that will make the meatballs really moist. I know how much everybody on the internet loves that word. And then 2 eggs. And ½ a cup of beef broth. I reconstituted my beef bouillon, so that's still a little on the warm side. I'm going to mix up these eggs a little bit first. My hands are the best tool for this job. So my turkey was still a little bit frozen, in spite of the fact that it's been in the refrigerator for 2 days. So just kind of, oh, that's cold. You know what will help with that? Oh. So I'm kind of doing this ahead a little bit because I don't need to make these for a while until my husband gets home, but I wanted to have this mixture waiting for me so that I wasn't doing it all last minute. I also peeled and cut up my potatoes because I'm going to serve this with some mashed potatoes because Salisbury steak without mashed potatoes is a travesty. So we'll throw together the ingredients for, I'm just going to put some plastic wrap on this and throw it in the fridge, and then we'll throw together the ingredients for the gravy. All right, so I've got a cup of beef broth in here, and we're going to stir in 2 tablespoons of flour slowly so that we don't get any lumps. You could also pour this into a sifter and that would help with to make sure you're not getting clumps of flour like that dropping in, but I'm not super concerned. Oops. I mean, I probably don't even need to be as careful as I'm being. You don't like lumpy gravy. Okay. So there's the rest of that flour. And then in here I have 2 teaspoons of red wine vinegar and 4 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. Some wash your sister sauce, if you will. And we're going to pour in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I have a feeling I may regret that. I probably would have preferred to saute that first, but It's gonna cook for a while with the meatballs, so it should be fine. Also going to add in some more minced onion. I like my Salisbury steak gravy good and oniony, so. And then, interesting ingredient, a teaspoon of mustard powder. Or excuse me, a half a teaspoon of mustard powder. Okay, and I'll just set that aside until we're ready to pour it onto our meatballs. All right, start working on these meatballs. Just preheating this pan with some oil. And I'm gonna make these a bit larger than the recipe calls for, just because I don't feel like making 40 meatballs. So we're going like ice cream scoop size. Well, that was a little bigger, isn't it? It's good. Alright, so I'm pulling the first batch out. They're not like fully cooked or anything, but they're past the point of falling apart, which is what I'm interested in. And while those other ones are browning, I'm just going to give these mushrooms a head start. The recipe calls to just throw it in with the broth. That sounds sad. I think I'm gonna call it good enough with those meatballs. I'm gonna put these back in the pan. The sauce we made, I'm gonna add just a little bit more liquid to that. I feel like it's not very much. And if I need to add more salt later, then that's fine. Then we're gonna cover that and let it cook on the stovetop for 20 minutes. Oh, that don't look bad. Can you see? Pretty sure these are cooked. Yeah. Man, they smell good. Alright, let me taste that gravy, see if it needs any seasoning. Oh, yum. It's a little on the salty side, but it tastes real good. I think I'm gonna leave it be because we're gonna eat the gravy over the potatoes, and I think it'll be fine. It's a little different than the Salisbury steak gravy I'm used to, but I mean, it ain't bad. It's very tasty. It's got plenty of flavor. It's funny, I sat down and normally I read reviews before I do a recipe, but with skinnytaste.com, like, I have yet to find a recipe that I don't really enjoy. And I do have tendencies to take liberties because I know how I like things. So, yeah, I'm just gonna leave that on low until my husband gets home. So like I was saying, I normally read reviews for recipes before I try making them, but with the skinnytaste.com recipes, I've used so many and I have yet to find one that I don't like. So I don't really bother. I will say that this recipe, like when you look at the recipe online, it says that it's like for stovetop, Instant Pot, or crock pot. And there were a bunch of people that had a really hard time with this recipe because they tried making it in the Instant Pot. I don't like trying to brown things like meatballs in an Instant Pot. Like, it's too unwieldy. The sides are too high. I don't mind sauteing things like onions and mushrooms or like a big roast or, you know, stuff like that. But like sauteing something fiddly like meatballs, especially for as small as she calls them to be in her recipe. Like, I did mine a little less than twice the size of what her recipe called for, because the recipe, like a single recipe called for 20 meatballs, a double recipe called for 40. And I think I had like 24 or 25 meatballs, something like that. So Anyway, like everybody was saying that the meatball mixture was too soft, and that like people were saying don't put the broth in it. And I mean, you saw the texture, it was fine. I didn't have any issues. Maybe that's because I let it rest in the fridge, but I mean, it really only rested in the fridge for maybe 10 minutes, if that. So I think that the way to go with this one is stovetop. You're really not saving any time by doing it in the Instant Pot. It's like 10 minutes on pressure as opposed to 20 minutes on the stovetop. I wouldn't bother with the Instant Pot in that case. I love using the Instant Pot for things like roasts where you're only cooking it for an hour instead of 4. You know, that makes sense to me. But to save 10 minutes, like, no, I'll just do it on the stovetop. So I definitely recommend following the stovetop instructions as I did. So anyway, I'll come back when we do the taste test. All right, we're gonna try out these Salisbury steak meatballs. Those meatballs have a very nice texture. These are really good. You should give these a try. The green beans are just like a little bit of brown sugar, buttery steakhouse seasoning, that Kinder's buttery steakhouse, and some balsamic vinegar with a tiny bit of oil just to get it going. They're like my favorite green beans. But anyway, this is fantastic. You should make it. Just don't do it in the Instant Pot. All right, guys, that's it for this week. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and let me know down in the comments which recipes you're planning to try. I post cooking and weight loss results videos pretty much every week, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to see how much weight I've lost eating all these delicious recipes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Can't wait to find a